you know, if you see me in 4 years or something coming out with a book, you probably don't want to buy it because it's probably not good. Hello everybody, happy Frog Friday. My name is Carly, and today I'm going to be talking about the top 10 Stephen King books that I still have on my TBR that I'm excited to get to soon. I got this video idea from Christopher Navo, who is another YouTuber here. He makes a lot of great content. I'm going to link his video and channel in the description below, so I highly recommend you check him out if you haven't already. I saw him post this video just this week, and I thought it was a great idea. So I'm going to start off with the obvious ones first. So number one, I'm going to start off with the Dark Tower series, which I have represented by The Gunslinger. I need to finally start my journey to the tower. I know there's a lot of connections to his other books in this, and I just finished reading Salem's Lot, which I believe is the last one I need to read before starting the first few books in the series. This is on my July TBR, so in a month from now, I should have read it. We'll see how that goes. It shouldn't take me too long. It's only 295 pages in this copy, and there's pictures, and it's pretty big text, so should be a pretty quick one. All I really know is that it's a fantasy western series that's just really weird and has a lot of connections to his other books, and people love it, so it's about time I finally got started with it, especially now that I own a copy myself. Although I do think I'm gonna have to wait until I have a copy of Drawing of the Three, because I know a lot of people say that that's one of their favorites, and this one people tend to not like as much, at least on the first reread, because it doesn't really make sense until you read all the rest of the series and then come back to this one, and then people appreciate it. So from what I've heard, it's just kind of confusing and a setup for the rest of the series. So I think at least knowing that going into it, it's going to make it a lot easier to get through and continue on with the rest of the series. And then number two is The Stand, which I believe is his longest book. It's something like 1,200 pages in the uncut version, which I would be reading the uncut version because I feel like if I did the cut version, I wouldn't feel like I had actually fully completed the work. So I want to know how he intended it to be the unedited version. I love post-apocalyptic books, so I think I should really enjoy it. I know there's a big good versus evil situation in it. It kind of feels like Station 11's good versus evil, but way expanded upon. All I know, especially with the unedited version, it's going to be a lot of character work because the unedited is multiple hundred more pages than the edited version. But just going chronologically in the publishing order, The Stand is also my next one up on the list, so it's about time I finally get to that giant tome. Speaking of tomes, for number three, it is It. This tends to be a lot of people's favorite book of his. I haven't seen any of the movies, the old one or the new one, or the TV series I think there is, so I really don't know much about this at all, except for the one controversial scene towards the end that a lot of people hate. I think, again, knowing that that exists going into it will kind of prepare myself for it, and I won't be as shocked or affected by it as a lot of people were. I really like multiple timeline, multiple POV type of stuff, so I think I should really enjoy getting to learn more about Derry, and I am gonna make myself watch the movies afterwards, even though I absolutely hate scary movies, but I love to see how things are adapted from book to movie, so I'm gonna force myself to sit through it, even though I hate jump scares, and I know there's a lot of them in it, and I also don't particularly like clowns, so, you know, it's gonna be a great experience. This one I've had a hold on in my Libby account for the longest time. Comes in all the time, and I constantly press deliver later, let the next person borrow it. One day I am gonna stop doing that. Probably this fall I will read it. I want to read it around Halloween time with the spooky vibes. Next up, number four, I am putting two things together because they make up a whole, and that is Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption and The Breathing Method, which are two novellas in the novella collection Different Seasons. I want to read these two because so far I have read Apt Pupil and The Body, which are the other two novellas that make it up, so I want to say that I've read Different Seasons as a whole, so I'd really like to get to it. I have not seen the Shawshank Redemption movie, and I've heard it's a lot of people's favorite movies in general, like people that aren't even fans of Stephen King and don't realize that it's based off of his book. Very beloved movie, and I'd love to get to watch it, but I like to read things before I watch them, so I need to get to that so I can watch them. I really don't know much about either of them, so I'm gonna pretty much go into that blind. For number five, I'm putting 11/22/63 on there, which I have kind of stayed away from. Again, it's another tome, but this one's like a historical fiction. It takes place in the 60s following a time traveler who's going back in time to try to stop JFK's assassination. And I usually shy away from, I don't even know, did you call it historical fiction? Is that what it is? When it's really like describing all the references, really setting the scene of the time period in the past. I don't really like reading past stories that much, so I've kind of shied away from it. And I also know a big part of it is a romance between two of the characters, and again, I'm not really a romance reader, so hasn't really piqued my interest that much. But this is another one of those ones that many people claim to be their favorite Stephen King novel out of all of them, so I want to know what the hype is all about. Am I going to like it as much as everyone else seems to? For number 6, I'm putting Needful Things, which I have noticed that a lot of people put it in their top 5, top 10 list, and they claim that it's an underrated book, but everyone I'm seeing in the book community is calling it underrated and putting it on that favorite list, which I guess you could say it's underrated because the general public doesn't know about Needful Things, but within the booktube, bookstagram space, a lot of people like Needful Things, and it sounds like it's going to be great. I'm really excited to get to this one. I've heard that it's pretty fast-paced, even though it's kind of long, and that it reminds people of Under the Dome, and Under the Dome is one of my favorite books of his, so I am excited to get to it. I don't know what it's about that much. I know some guy has a shop and he offers people what they need in exchange for something, and that's pretty much all I know. Things go bad, he's like a bad guy. I have a copy of it somewhere. I think it's sitting in my garage right now because I'm still not fully unpacked from school, but I was planning on reading it during a very long plane ride that was going to be coming up soon, but I think that plane ride is going to end up being pushed back a few months, so it might be a little bit longer before I get to it. We'll see. But that's probably the one I'm most excited for about on this list out of all of them. For number 7, I'm going to put On Writing, which is a nonfiction memoir, and some of you might be surprised to see this on there out of all the ones I still have left, but I've read somewhere around 30 or 40 of his books so far, and I've watched tons of interviews by him, and I just like him as a person in general, so I love to read about his past in this. He has a lot of stories from his childhood, I think, and what it was like writing his books, so I'm really excited about that part of it. I have no desire to be a writer in the future. I always hated creative writing. Like, those are my least favorite assignments out of everything all throughout school. I never had any ideas for writing stories. So, you know, if you see me in 4 years or something coming out with a book, you probably don't want to buy it because it's probably not good. I might have had a ghostwriter or something. Don't trust future me, okay? It's not going to be good. I cannot write a creative story for shit. So the actual writing tips in it, I'm not that interested in, but I've heard a lot of good things about it, and I would like to hear the memoir side of the book. You might be surprised by what I'm putting on here for number 8, and that is Sleeping Beauties. I constantly see this in people's, top 10 worst Stephen King books. This is his story that he wrote with his son Owen King. I recently met Owen and listened to him talk at a book festival, so I'm very curious to see how he is as a writer. I've heard a lot of people say they think this was kind of just Owen writing it and Stephen putting his name on it as well. I don't know the plot of this at all, but I have recently heard of someone saying it feels like Owen King attempting to write Under the Dome, and like I've said earlier in the video and every other video, I love Under the Dome, so I am kind of intrigued by that and I would like to see his take on it. Probably before the book festival, that would have been one of the last books that I read, but now hearing him speak, I want to see how he is as an author. I'm kind of cheating here for number 9, but it is 2 books. It is Desperation and The Regulators, which one of them is a Stephen King book, and then one of them is a Richard Bachman book, which is Stephen King's pen name if you don't know, and it apparently follows the same type of storyline, the same characters, but the Richard Bachman one, because Richard Bachman's stories are more darker, it takes the story and twists it around to a much darker, wackier, crazier version of it, and I just love to compare the things and see how they're done differently. So I know these are both pretty big tomes as well, I think, and I don't have a copy of either of them, but I'm sure I can find it. And again, I don't know much about this because anytime people talk about this book, they don't know how to explain the plot, or they don't want to say the plot because it spoils it. So I kind of don't even want to look up a summary of it, and I want to go into it blind. Really, the only thing that I do know about it is that it's in more of an unusual setting for Stephen King, which is something else that intrigues me. It takes place somewhere in the Southwest. It's either, I think it's Arizona or maybe Nevada. I can't remember which one of the two is written by Stephen King and which which one is the Bachman book, but I know one is one, one is the other. The only thing I'm confused by is I'm not sure which one I'm supposed to read first. I kind of want to read them back to back to be able to compare them right away. So let me know down below in the comments if you read both of them, which one do I read first. And then for number 10, this one might be the most surprising of all, and you probably would never expect for this to be on anyone's list of books they're excited for, but it is Dreamcatcher. I know. What am I saying here? If you right now pause this video, go to the search bar and type in all Stephen King books ranked, and you watch every video on there, most likely this will be 90% of those people's number 50 or 60 or whatever the heck it is, the last book in their ranking. People hate this book for some reason. I know nothing about it. I think there's aliens in it. There's like a deer on the cover, like a ghost deer or something. It reminds me of Harry Potter, the, what are they called? Like the apparitions or whatever, like your spirit animal or whatever. I can't remember what it's called in Harry Potter, but it reminds me of that, the ghost deer on the cover of it. But anyways, I want to read this for 2 reasons. First of all, it was published in 2001, which is the year I was born, so I feel like I need to read my birth year book by Stephen King. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this was one of his first books published after he had his big accident where a car hit him and he almost died. So I think he was writing this while he was recovering from it and he wasn't able to do anything, so he was super frustrated. So people feel like it was kind of a shit book because he was in a bad mood writing it or something like that. But the other reason I want to read it is I want to know how terrible this book is. Like, is it really that bad that it needs to be on everyone's shit list? Like, why is this in people's top 10 worst books? Why does everyone hate this book? I don't know. Who knows? Maybe when I do my ranking video, this one's gonna be number 1. You know, it's gonna be my top King book. Something tells me it won't, but you never know. That's all for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Comment down below which of these 10 books you think I should prioritize or what your next King book is going to be. Today's frog fact is just going to be a little terminology lesson. So the word herpetology is the study of amphibians, which includes frogs as well as things like salamanders and these weird things called caecilians, which are a lot like worms. It's kind of hard to describe them. I didn't know about them before this past year. And then also the study of reptiles, which is things like snakes and lizards and these things called tuataras, which I'll put a picture of up here, sort of like a lizard, iguana type of thing, and also crocodilians. So it's the study of amphibians and reptiles clumped together. And then if someone says they're going herping, that means they're going out looking for herps, looking for amphibians and reptiles. So it's very similar to someone saying they're going birding to go look for birds. Herping is to go look for herps. Thanks again for watching. I hope you all have a great day. Goodbye.